Because on Friday morning, the Justice Department released its largest batch of Epstein documents, which totals over 3 million pages. 3 million is a lot of pages. It's like when your mom says she's reading another book about Olive Kitteridge.
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is, but I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like
When the Jeffrey Epstein story began returning to public attention, Donald Trump reacted immediately. But instead of moving toward the controversy, he appeared determined to distance himself from it as quickly as possible. "I wasn't a fan. I barely knew him. We had a falling out."
One prominent guy who is in there prominently because President Donald Trump is mentioned more than 1,000 times. And the New York Times found 5,300 files with references to Trump and more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, and Mar-a-Lago. 38,000 references. That seems low, frankly. Obviously, this is the biggest story imaginable.
It was short, controlled, and dismissive. It sounded designed to create distance, to frame the relationship as insignificant, almost erased from history. As though Epstein had been nothing more than a passing acquaintance. For a brief time, that version of events seemed to hold together. Then Stephen Colbert entered the conversation, and instead of relying on accusations, he turned to documented evidence. On national television, Colbert did something simple but powerful. He revisited the past. The first image appeared, Trump and Epstein together at Mar-a-Lago, relaxed, smiling, comfortable in each other's
files include many disturbing allegations, all denied by the White House as being unfounded and false. I want to be clear about that. But among these is that before he was president of the United States, Donald Trump forced an underage girl to perform oral sex and hosted big orgy parties with young girls at one of his golf clubs. Even if these particular parts of the files that the Justice Department released and are denied by the White House as not being
company, not strangers, not distant acquaintances, Colbert paused for effect. Barely knew him. He repeated as the audience laughed softly. But the moment no longer felt like simple comedy. Then another image appeared. A crowded party, women surrounding them. Trump and Epstein once again standing side by side, looking familiar and at ease. Then another photograph from another year. Another shared social setting. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. These did not look like isolated encounters. They looked like repeated interactions.
8,000 references. These files aren't just about Trump. They embarrass a lot of big shots, a lot of head honchos and poobahs and muckety-mucks. Take Elon Musk. Yeah, please. He's publicly bragged that Mr. Epstein tried to get me to go to his island and I refused. But really? Did ya? Because there's an email exchange where Musk writes, "Do you have any parties planned? I've been working to the edge of sanity this year, and so once my kids head home after Christmas, I really want to hit the party scene in St. Bart's or elsewhere and let loose. A peaceful island experience is the opposite of what I'm looking for." An email
inside private clubs, elite gatherings, and exclusive circles. The kind of environments where people usually know each other far better than barely. Colbert leaned into the moment. That's a lot of pictures for someone you barely knew. This time, the laughter was quieter because the tone had shifted from amusing to uncomfortable. But he was not finished. Photos can always be explained away. People can argue it was just a party, just a coincidence, just a single moment frozen in time. But words are harder to dismiss. Words remain clear. That was when Colbert introduced something far more difficult to ignore. A quote from a 2002 interview in New York Magazine. Long before Epstein became synonymous with scandal, Trump spoke openly about him. "Terrific guy," Trump said. "A lot of fun to be with." The audience reacted immediately, but Colbert continued because the next line carried even more weight. "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side." The room fell silent. Not comedic silence, but the kind that settles over a crowd when something suddenly feels too real to laugh at. Colbert did not need to exaggerate anything. These were not rumors, leaked documents, or anonymous allegations. These were Trump's own public words from a period when there was no apparent reason to deny the relationship. And in that moment, the contradiction became impossible to ignore. In 2019, the message was, "I barely knew him." In 2002, the description was, "Terrific guy." Two entirely different versions of reality, each pulling against the other. Colbert summarized the contradiction with one sharp observation. Either the memory changed, or the story did, because the defense seemed to rely on one assumption above all else: that nobody would revisit the past closely enough to compare the details. That old photographs would stay forgotten, and old quotes would remain buried in archives no one checked anymore. But in the modern world, the past rarely disappears. Images remain searchable, interviews survive forever. Records wait quietly until someone connects them piece by piece. And that was what made the moment feel so powerful. There was no secret leak, no anonymous source, no hidden documents suddenly uncovered. Everything had already been public the entire time. It only required someone willing to place each image and each quote side by side until the narrative began to crack under its own weight. At that point, the segment stopped feeling like ordinary late-night comedy. It became something closer to reconstruction. A timeline unfolding in real time, where every photo increased the pressure and every quote added another layer of contradiction. Eventually, the phrase "barely knew him" no longer sounded doubtful. It sounded impossible. And moments like this often reveal more than a single inconsistency. They expose a larger pattern. Deny, minimize, wait, and hope the controversy fades away. But this time it did not fade because someone slowed the story down, examined it closely under the spotlight, and allowed the past to speak entirely for itself.